Hello and welcome to Chromebooks.support. My name is James, and today I'm going to give you a brief overview of Google's Chrome OS operating system. The operating system currently runs on 3 different devices: a Chromebook, which is a laptop, a Chromebox, which is a desktop, and a Chrome base, which is an all-in-one desktop, similar to like the iMacs type thing. I will be referring to them as Chromebooks most of the time, just because that's the most popular device out there. But just know that pretty much anything that applies to a Chromebook will apply to a Chromebox, will apply to a Chromebase. There's dozens of Chromebook models out there. There's about 3 or so Chromebox models, and there's 1 Chromebase made by LG. I think I heard a rumor that somebody else might be considering making a Chromebase, but as far as I know right now, there's just 1. But they're all the same. It's like Windows 7 on a laptop versus desktop versus all-in-one. It's the same operating system. So I'll use those words pretty interchangeably. So today I'm going to just walk you through. I'm going to pretend that you just bought a Chromebook and it's sitting in front of you and you're about to open it for the very first time. So before we get into opening the Chromebook, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about Chrome OS. It's different. It's different from Windows. It's different from Macs. You can see kind of right now, it doesn't look a whole lot different. Right now I'm just looking at a Chrome browser. Okay. Down here we got different Hangouts in the bottom right corner, Google Hangouts with various people. Down in the bottom left we have some apps that I've pinned to the taskbar, which I think you can also do in Windows. I know in Mac there's a bunch of apps kind of down at the bottom in the middle that sort of pop up when you hover over them. So right now, it's just looking at it, it's not crazy different. You'll notice there's no start menu, of course. This isn't Windows. But it really is quite different. The biggest difference between Chrome OS and a Windows or Mac machine is, and this is going to sound weird, but on a Chromebook you cannot install programs like executable files, drivers for printers or whatever. You can't do it. It doesn't allow it. If you download a .exe file and you try to open it, it'll just tell you this file type is not supported. At first, that might sound crazy. What good is a computer that you can't download programs on? Well, thankfully, due to the fact that web technologies have been growing and improving vastly over the last few years, there's actually a surprising amount of work that can be done just inside your web browser without having to download anything natively to the computer. So we'll get into a little bit of that, but just know that's the biggest difference. If you're wondering why they don't allow you to install stuff, it's because if you've ever bought like a Windows machine and you open it up and it's fast and you're like, oh, this is so good. I'm so glad I spent $900 on this. It's so fast. And like 6 months later, you're like, why did I spend $900 on this thing? It's slow, it's buggy. Well, that's because you're installing stuff on it and it's slowing it down. It's taking up space. You don't have enough memory to run all these programs, and it just gets muddled with drivers and software and whatnot. This doesn't happen to the Chromebook. My first Chromebook was a Samsung 550. It was a loaner from Google, so I'm not really sure how many people owned it before I did, but I know that I owned it for about a year, and it was just as fast the day I traded it as it was when I opened it, as it was when I first got it. It boots up in about 8 seconds. It's just a really fast little machine, and it doesn't require expensive hardware to operate. So that's why they do it. It enables them to keep the OS light. Most Chromebooks come with just a 16 gigabyte solid state drive, and most of that would be taken up by Windows. If you tried to buy a Windows machine with a 16 gigabyte hard drive, you wouldn't be able to store anything because it'd all be taken up just with the operating system. But Chrome OS is very light, doesn't take up much space, and it's fast, and it stays fast. And in fact, it gets a little bit faster with the updates. Google updates Chrome OS every 6 weeks. So, and it's a free upgrade, and it takes about 10 or 12 seconds to upgrade it. So that's pretty nice. So that's why they do it. It's also a huge benefit when it comes to security. Most actual viruses are some sort of executable file. So if you can't even install an executable file, how are you going to get a virus, right? So far, there's been no known cases of a Chromebook getting a virus. It is possible to get browser hijacks and malware, but on Chromebooks, those are really really easy to deal with. Don't have to worry about digging around the registry and all that fun stuff like you would in Windows. So it's a very secure operating system. Google's actually offering a lot of money right now if anybody can successfully hack Chrome OS in a way that would be detrimental security-wise. If you can pull that off, you get a lot of money, and no one's been able to pull it off yet. So those are the benefits. The drawbacks, of course, are if your workflow requires a specific program, you just have to have that program. Maybe Chromebook's not for you. But the reason Chromebooks are selling so well is because 90% of what 90% of people do can be done within a web browser and actually doesn't require all those programs. So Chromebooks make a great second device for a lot of people, and they even make a good primary device for some people like myself. I don't use Windows anymore. I'm all Chrome. So that's kind of Chrome OS in a nutshell. It's based off the open source project, chromium.org. So you can check that out if you're a nerd and you're interested in that kind of stuff. If you just want to know what a Chromebook's like, keep watching. If you just bought a Chrome device and you open it up for the first time, what you're going to see is a little window that looks like this, asking you to pick a language, a keyboard, and select your Wi-Fi network, or Ethernet if you happen to have a device with Ethernet adapter. Once you do that, the next screen you'll see, I don't have a screenshot of it because it's just your typical Google login screen. It'll have you log in with your Google email address and password. And then once you do that, you will be looking at your desktop, which will probably look something like this. Every model has their own default wallpaper. This happens to be what the Asus Chromebox default wallpaper is. You won't see all these Hangout things, of course, down here. You won't see as many apps down here, but this is basically what you're looking at once you get logged in. So first things first, you got a new computer. Most importantly, what you want to do is change the wallpaper, of course, because you got to personalize it, make it your own. So Chromebook, it's real easy. What you do is you're going to right-click on the desktop with a Chromebook. That means either two-finger tapping on the touchpad, or you can hold the Alt key on your keyboard, and just one finger tap. That will give you a right-click, or you can use a mouse if you want. You can plug a mouse to do it and actually use a right-click. But go ahead and right-click or two-finger click on the desktop and hit Set Wallpaper. And you can choose from a whole bunch of different stock photos. If you want to pick your own, go to Custom. And you can see I've already done a couple. It's the same one. But if you want to use your own, you hit the plus sign, navigate to the picture you want, and it'll change it. So I'm going to just go with this one. And you can hit Surprise Me, which is fun. It'll just give you a different random one every time. But I like to just use my own. So we're going to do that. And there it is. There's my new wallpaper. So that's pretty easy. If you want to get into the access your apps. Now, you're not going to have a whole lot of apps, of course, right now if it's a brand new device, but there are a few preloaded apps. They're mostly just Google apps like Gmail, which it really isn't an app. It's just if you click on it, it takes you to gmail.com. That's what most of these apps are, actually. You click on it and it just opens up that website in your browser. So technically they're just bookmarks, but it feels like an app, right? You click on it and it opens something. So you'll have Google Drive, Gmail, Google Music, that kind of stuff. There's a calculator. To access those apps, there's two ways. You can either click on this little grid of 3x3 little squares. You may recognize that. Excuse me. You may recognize that from your typical Google web page. Up here you have the little 9 boxes. Click on it. Get some apps. It's also on Android. Tap that button, open your apps. So not a huge change there. If you use Google anything, you probably recognize this little symbol. Click on that and it shows you all your apps. You can see I have many pages of apps here that I can scroll through. The other way, you'll notice on your keyboard where you're used to seeing a caps lock button. There's a search button. Hit that and it brings up your apps. And you don't even have to click on anything. You can just type it. If I want to open Angry Birds, start typing Angry Birds. I can just hit enter and it would open up Angry Birds. So that's how you access your apps. to get apps, if you want to know where to find apps at, you can either go in there and the first app should be the store, web store, or you can just, Google Chrome web store. And there it is. So the vast majority of all these apps will work on a Chromebook. A couple here and there might not work. Maybe it requires Java or some kind of executable file. But most of these should work just fine on your Chromebook. One thing to pay attention to, they made it real nice. Some apps just require internet, like OneDrive. You can't connect to your documents in the cloud and edit them without an internet connection, right? So there are some apps that require internet, and there are other apps that will work just fine without internet. So if you see a lightning bolt, that means that this app works offline. So like Google Drive works offline. You can create documents and stuff. You don't need to be connected to the internet. Other things, Angry Birds works just fine offline. But there are some apps that won't, and you will need an internet connection. So just keep that in mind. But this is where you go to get apps and extensions. So getting into the settings of your device is, if you've used Chrome before, you'll be familiar with this. You can just click on the hamburger menu up here and go to settings. So a couple of different other ways. If you click down here, you can hit settings. It takes you to the same place. If you're feeling like typing, you can go to Chrome settings, and that'll take you there. Most of these settings, if you use Chrome, you'll be familiar with. But since this is more than just a browser, it's an actual device, there are some other settings in here that you probably haven't seen before, like the mouse settings, keyboard, display, that kind of stuff. But some of the other stuff is just pretty typical. Google Cloud Print settings, HTTPS, that kind of stuff. So that's how you get to your settings. If you want to slow your mouse down a little bit, you click on mouse. I'm using an actual mouse. On a Chromebook, it'll say touchpad settings. I think it's been a while, but you can change your speed. I like mine, keep mine nice and slow. If it's too fast, I misclick things all the time. You can have some keyboard settings. I have, it says caps lock is set to caps lock, but when I hit that key, it still searches. So I'm not sure what that setting is doing, but you get the gist. Play around. If you're wondering how to do something, turn something on, turn something off, it's going to be in settings. There's no other place on this device where you can change how the device works other than going into settings. Or if you click down here, there's a couple different things. You can edit Bluetooth or Wi-Fi, just because those are popular. So they wanted to make it easy to get to those. So the only other way to change how the device works is to go in and change the flags. But that's more Chrome. If you've used Chrome before, maybe you've gone in and enabled or disabled a flag. They're kind of like developer type stuff. Most people don't go in and mess with the flags. I wouldn't recommend it unless you really think you know what you're doing. So this is it. Go into settings. That's where you're gonna find all your options. That's basically Chrome OS in a very small nutshell. I do want to talk about just a few apps that you should be aware of. Particularly with Chrome OS not allowing you to install programs, you may be thinking to yourself, oh no, how am I gonna listen to music? How am I gonna edit photos? How am I gonna edit documents? So I just want to go over some of the more popular ones just to give you an idea. We'll start with music. If you're an iPod user, you cannot put iTunes on a Chromebook. So if you wish to continue being an iPod user, you're probably going to need to keep a Windows or Mac machine around so that you can, use iTunes. But the good news is you can listen to your iTunes library, some or most of it anyways, on a Chromebook. And here's how. Back in the day, when you downloaded music from iTunes, it was all DRM protected. So if you still have a bunch of music that you've downloaded back when it was DRM protected, then you will only be able to listen to that music in iTunes and on a phone. But if you've downloaded music after they stopped making everything DRM protected, or you've uploaded your own music, just ripped a CD into iTunes, then what you can do is on whatever computer has iTunes on it, if it's a Windows or Mac, you can download what's called Google Music Manager. And what that will do is that will look in your iTunes folder for music, and anytime it sees new music in there, it'll upload it to your Google Music account. So you can listen to it on your Chromebook, your phone, if you have the Google Music app on an Android phone, or any other Windows or Mac machine. You can go to Google, music.google.com and listen to that music. So it is possible to listen to your iTunes music on your Chromebook via Google Play, which lets you upload a ton of music for free. I don't remember how many songs, but a bunch. So you just can't actually get iTunes on the computer. So you're not going to be plugging your iPhone into your Chromebook, and syncing it. But you can still listen to your music that way. You can also just download music from Google Play Music. Google Music is like iTunes in that you can buy music or just upload your own music, whatever you want to do. They have a radio feature, which is really nice. I think, I'll be honest, I'm not actually sure if the radio feature is free or not, because I pay for Google Play Music All Access. Stupidest name ever for anything. But I pay $8 a month and I get to stream whatever music I want, kind of like Spotify. So I don't know if the radio function is free or not, but I do know that you can upload like 20,000 songs or something to Google Music for free without a paid subscription and listen to that music anywhere you have internet connection. So that's pretty cool. There's also Pandora, works just fine on a Chromebook. It's all web-based. Spotify works on a Chromebook. It didn't used to, but like a year or so ago, I don't know, they went to the web. It used to be something you had to download and install. Not anymore. If you're a Spotify user, Spotify works just fine on Chromebooks now. RDIO.com works just fine as well. So lots of different ways to listen to music on a Chromebook. Another thing you might be thinking in your head is, I can't use Microsoft Word or Excel. Yes and no. You can't use the full version, full-blown Microsoft Word. But there is Microsoft web apps. They actually made a Word, Excel, and PowerPoint app that works in the web browser. It's not fully featured. And in fact, my wife created a document in Microsoft Word at work. And when I looked at that document in Microsoft Online, it messed all the formatting and everything up. So, it's not a great solution. Microsoft could probably make it a little bit better, but they're getting there. They only recently started to catch on to the fact that the future is on the web. And so they're trying. They got the web apps out there and they work okay. But to be honest, Word Online doesn't render a Word document any better than Google Docs does. So Google Docs will open Word documents, and when you're done, you can save it as a docx file so that it can be later opened up in Google or Microsoft Word. So it's, regardless of what you're doing, it's best to just pick one and try to stick with it. In my opinion, since Microsoft products only work on certain devices, but Google Drive works on any device, I think it makes most sense to just try to convert your whole workflow to use Google Docs. That way, it's free. It doesn't require installing anything. You can use it on a Chromebook, Windows, Mac, whatever, and you don't have to worry about converting back and forth. So that's how I do. I don't use any Microsoft, of course. I don't have a Windows or a Mac machine, so I just use Google Docs for documents, spreadsheets, PowerPoint. Google calls it Google Slides or presentation. I don't remember which one they're going with right now, but so that's my recommendation. There are other options. OnlyOffice, I think OpenOffice. So there's other web-based Office type programs that you can use to edit and create documents. So I just personally recommend Google Drive, but there are also Microsoft web apps. So if you just really want to stick with Microsoft, you can do that. If you have a OneDrive account, you can access OneDrive on a Chromebook. It's all completely web-based. Works just fine. So, and the last thing I want to talk about is photo editing. Some of you might be thinking, well, I can't put Photoshop on it, so it's useless. Well, that depends on how you use Photoshop. If you use it if you're a professional graphic designer, yeah, you're probably going to want to stick with Windows or Mac and get the full-blown Adobe suite. But if you're like me and you're not a professional graphic designer, but you do find yourself designing graphics once in a while, there is a program called Pixlr. And as you can see, I've been using it. If you have been using, there's my wallpaper, Photoshop for a long time, you will notice that Pixlr pretty much looks just like Photoshop used to, like 10 years ago. This, I believe, Photoshop 7 is kind of what this looks like. So it's not as good as Photoshop, of course, but it doesn't require installing anything, and it's free. So hey, that's cool. If you've used Photoshop, you'll know how to use this. All the buttons are pretty much in the same place. They do the same thing. You know, you have your filters, adjustments. So, I mean, for me, this works just fine. I don't need Photoshop. Pixlr works just fine for me. Also, Photoshop is actually coming to Chromebooks, and it's already kind of here. Let me just re-enable it. They're beta testing right now, and I was lucky enough to somehow get invited to the beta test. It hasn't actually been working so good for me, so they're still working out some of the kinks. But the point is, Adobe is working with Google to make Photoshop work completely web-based. If you have an internet connection, you can use Photoshop without having to actually install anything on your computer. And yeah, let me try it again, just see if it'll come up. So it's very exciting because when they figure it out and it comes out of beta testing, I don't know why it doesn't want to work right now. I'll figure that out later. But that's going to be awesome. It's something that Chromebook users have been wanting. Not everybody is like me and can get away with using Pixlr. Some people need that Photoshop. So the fact that Photoshop is coming, it makes me think, you know, when they get that figured out, is Illustrator coming too? So that's very exciting. Pretty soon we'll actually be able to use full-blown Photoshop on a Chromebook. So that's exciting, at least for Chromebook users. It's also probably exciting for other people too, because it would be nice to use Photoshop without having to install it on your computer, because like I said before, that slows things down. So if you have a pretty good internet connection at home, you can use Photoshop and just stream it and not have to slow your computer down. So that's about it. You know, those are just kind of the big things. And I will say, you cannot play Minecraft on a Chromebook. Sorry, just can't happen. Probably never will. But that's something the kids are always complaining about. So, but those are just a few of the basic popular things that people want to do. So I wanted to make sure you're aware of those alternate apps. Yeah, let me know if you have any questions. Feel free to leave comments. If you look at the bottom of the notes, there's a link to the Chromebook product forum, the official Google Chromebook product forum. There's also a link to the Google Plus community for Chromebooks. It's a great community, 30-some thousand members. So check those out. Thanks for watching. Y'all have a good one.